So now that we've just passed the 1-year anniversary of the October 7th massacre, worst massacre to hit the Jewish people since the Holocaust, Bill Maher decided to dedicate his monologue to educating people on the subject of Israel, particularly among those, especially students in the West, who think that the Jews and Israel are in some way colonialists and that Zionism is a colonialist project. Here, he aims his monologue directly at those kinds of people that think that. Have a watch this very poignant monologue from Bill Maher.
Now, first off, the fact that you don't know much history isn't your fault. You live in the United States, where the schools stopped doing that whole teaching facts thing a while ago. But getting all your history from TikTok is like getting all your calories from Hostess. I know you're moved by what you see on there. We all are, the dead Palestinian bodies. But it's odd that your generation didn't seem nearly as moved by the Jewish bodies on October 7th. You killed at Coachella this year, but when Hamas kills at a music festival, it's a whole other thing. Doesn't the sight of so many young women raped at a music festival make it a little personal? My guess is that Gen Z hearts are hardened by the propaganda you see on TikTok, which likes to call the Jews colonizers. But colonizers are intruders who have no history in an area, like when Spain conquered the Mayans, or when your mom took over Facebook. When the Dutch took over South Africa, they had no history to the land, they just wanted it. But Israel is the Jews' homeland, and Jews have always lived there, I cap you not. You can look it up. It's in this book called The Bible. Archaeology checks out. It says the Jews built a temple with a really big wall 7 centuries before Muhammad or Islam ever existed, and sure as shit, you can still go there and touch it. Calling Jews colonizers in Israel is like calling Native Americans colonizers here. It's ridiculous. Chapel, did you know that for 2,000 years, Palestine was like an Uber driver with a 3-star rating? Nobody wanted it. And there was never any Arab country called Palestine. It was an orphan province. And if you ask people what they thought about it back then, they'd say it gave them the ick. But after World War II, and after the Jews were very nearly wiped out by an actual attempted genocide, they decided it was time for their historic homeland to be an actual country, so that for once they could defend themselves. And the UN, we like them, right? Yeah, they agreed and voted a country for each of the indigenous peoples. One side agreed to that, but the Arabs had a slightly different proposal.
The Arabs weren't indigenous to the land. That's just that, they've had a historic presence there, not as long as the Jews, but had a historic presence there. They're not indigenous to that land. They're indigenous to the Arabian Peninsula. But anyway.
They said, how about we keep it all and wipe you out? Chapel, you're not wrong that oppression is bad, or that Palestinian and many other Muslim populations are oppressed and deserve to be freed. You just have it completely ass backwards as to who is doing the oppressing. Hamas is a terrorist mafia that took over Gaza. The Revolutionary Guard is a terrorist mafia that took over Iran. ISIS is a terrorist mafia that took over Iraq. The Taliban is a terrorist mafia that took over Afghanistan. These are the oppressors. And when you make it all about Israel, you take the pressure off of them. You enable them. The Iranian regime has killed 600 protesters after a 22-year-old woman died in police custody following her arrest for the crime of wearing her head covering incorrectly. Just to be clear, that's your team. Iran is who sponsors Hamas and Hezbollah. Are you sure this is who you want to throw down with?
Yeah, it's great words from Bill. And I think he's right to say that people that are so obsessively hateful of Israel and this war and telling them to stop and all that, rather than directing their critique of Hamas and Hezbollah, they actually become complicit with Hamas and Hezbollah. It's like, Hamas's intention is to maximize civilian casualties. And when you say, Israel, you're attacking civilians, you're enabling them because you're telling them that basically Israel can't go to war at all, because the only way they can fight is accepting that Hamas are going to try and use human shields. And so you're actually just enabling terrorism. That's all it comes down to. It's a tragic situation, but nonetheless, there has to be moral clarity in all of this. One other thing that's so interesting is that he was saying earlier about how Jews and Zionism is described as this colonizing movement, which is absurd when the Jews are the indigenous people to the land. They've had a 3,000-year-old connection with the land. Unfortunately, it's not just the likes of TikTok influencers and other celebrities and, you know, messages in youth culture that are saying this. It's even Wikipedia. This is Wikipedia, their article on Zionism, where they say, let me just read it to you because I've just made a video on this. They talk about how Zionism is an ethno-cultural nationalist movement that emerged in Europe in the late 19th century. Oh, it's all to do with Europe. It's nothing about the Jews having an ancient connection to the land. Don't forget, also half the Jews living in Israel today come from the Arab world. As in, they were living in the Arab world. They all come from Israel, ultimately, but that's where they were living for hundreds of years, thousands even. An aim for the establishment of a Jewish state through the colonization of a land outside Europe. Oh boy. They're not even hiding it. Whoever is editing this, and I don't know if it will change soon, because this looks like it's... I don't recall looking at the Zionism Wikipedia article, but I'd be shocked if it's been like this for a long time, and if it has, it's even worse. But usually the kind of deeply biased approaches, they change pretty quickly, and this has been there now for quite a bit of time. With the rejection of alternative proposals for a Jewish state, it eventually focused on the establishment of a Jewish homeland in Palestine. Oh, because there's be so many other places that are appropriate for the Jews indigenous to the land of Israel, indigenous to the land of Judea, to go to other than that land. Ah, okay. It's Wikipedia itself that's telling people this. And they say, it eventually focused on the establishment of a Jewish homeland in Palestine, a region corresponding to the land of Israel in Judaism and of central importance in Jewish history. Okay, they managed to throw it in there. They don't want to say anything about how this was there were two Jewish kingdoms there 2,000 years ago, and the Jews were forcefully exiled from that land. That's why a lot of them ended up being in Europe and the West. Nope, don't want to say that. They just say that it's part of, Judaism and the religion. It all sounds very mythical. It sounds very, non-historic. Also, when they say a Jewish homeland in Palestine, no context on what Palestine is. No context for the fact that that land, that region, was given that name by actual European colonialists, by the Romans, by the ancient Romans 2,000 years ago. They renamed the land of Judea, the land that was known as the land of Israel by the Jews, as they were kicking them out. As a plan to sever the connection, they decided to call it Syria Palestina. Palestina referenced the Philistines, who were the basically extinct ancient enemies of the Jewish people. And their attempt to sever the connection worked because many people believe it, including, it seems, Wikipedia. And then they say Zionists want to create a Jewish state in Palestine with as much land, as many Jews, and as few Palestinian Arabs as possible. Have a watch of the video I've just published on this. I've done a separate video on Wikipedia's bias here. Because literally throughout every step of the journey of the Jewish people's return to the land, they've always said, we don't want to kick out other people. If they're happy to live here with us, that's great. It's always been the Arabs' desire, their ideology, their colonialist project to say, we want to kick out the Jews and not have them here, and we want as few Jews living in this land as possible. It's the other way around. The Zionists have always said, the Jews have always said, we're happy to live here with non-Jews and with Arabs, the proof of which being Israeli Arabs, Druze, Christians living in Israel. There's just one little condition, one teeny condition that we have for them living in our ancient homeland, which is that they don't try to kill us. Is that possible? Is that acceptable? And even if, let's say, they don't want to live in a Jewish state, well, we've said for nearly 100 years, okay, fine, so we'll split the land. You've already got a Palestinian state in Jordan, because that was part of the region called Palestine. But fine, okay, we'll give you your own Arab state, a 22nd Arab state, a second Palestinian state. And you have that, but they said no to that as well. We tried it in Gaza as well, just under 20 years ago. And their response has been, we're going to use it as a, plotting ground to try and kill you. So sorry, we don't want to be killed. And we want to live in our ancient homeland, which is indigenous, and it is legally, historically, biblically, religiously, on every single ground, on every count, the Jewish people's home. So sorry, for being us, for living, existing. Guilty as charged. If you've made it so far in this video, I have a request for you. JTV has been having a really big impact in spreading the truth about Israel and creating positive associations with the Jewish people, Judaism, and Israel. We've really grown a lot, particularly in the last year, and we're having a really significant impact, both for Jews and non-Jews. But I really want to take JTV to the next level so we can start to compete with the other big online media beasts that are often peddling anti-Israel content. And the way we're going to do that is to scale even faster. So I'd love to build a team where we have other presenters doing shows like me, that start doing documentaries, supplementary content, animated content, etc., etc. And to do that, I'd like to build a bit of a team. So what we're going to do is we're going to do one fundraising day, just one, where we try and build up some funding in order to fund such a team. Now, to do that, it's going to obviously require people to get involved. And I'm wondering if you would consider, if you're watching JTV content and appreciate what we do and want to help partner with us in taking this to the next level and spreading the truth farther and wider than ever before, I wonder if you'd consider partnering with us simply by running a mini page on the fundraiser that we do, where you just reach out to your contacts on that day that we choose to fundraise and see if they'll all chip in. If you'd be up for doing that, of which I would be so grateful, then please click on the Google form link in the video description of this video, where you can simply just put in a few contact details. It'll be a very small commitment, as I say, literally just one day that we'll all agree upon as a collective community. But the impact is going to be so big. There's such strength in numbers. If we all pull together and do this, we can take this to the next level. And as I say, all of us can partner together in bringing and spreading the truth to the whole world. So please do consider clicking on that link, filling in the form, and I'll be in touch very soon to talk about the next steps. Small commitment, but a big impact. Hi, thank you so much for watching. To watch another one, click here. To stay up to date with all our content, click here to subscribe. And if you're able to, you can help support JTV to grow and grow by clicking join below this video, where you can become a member and get perks including early access to videos and private live discussions with me. But most of all, you'll be partnering with us on our mission to change the world.